Welcome back. I have a four-part series on kind of what I would like to see out of the next installment of Civilization, which many people are speculating is going to be called Civilization 7. So we'll go along with that. Now, even though I've never made content about Civilization before, first off, don't expect hugely awesome graphics, especially if you're new to the channel. I have played every installment of Civilization and expansion, so I do know my way around it. I actually started way back in the day on the Super Nintendo playing Civilization 1, or the first Civilization game. So yes, I do know my way around Civilization the series. But Civilization in the 4X genre is basically the king. Now, one thing that we've seen here over the past couple years, even here in the year 2024, is, well, competition that has come into kind of even the Civilization take on history or humanity's, history. And it's been kind of nice, to have, see other developers or other people's ideas kind of come into that space and, their take and what they've thought. So we've had Humankind, we've had Aura, we've had even recently Millennia. It's great that more games are starting to come into that space. It's just competition, keeps the developers kind of making things new, fresh. And it doesn't mean that Civilization just has to be the king forever in this space. But when I think of Civilization or a game like Civilization, I think of three main pillars, okay? I think of historical, educational, and fun, okay? And those are the three categories that need to be balanced to make a Civilization type of game. But there are certain areas that I would like to see Civilization make things more in depth and even break away from what they have done in previous games. So let's take a look at what I would like to see from the next iteration of Civilization in this four-part series. Let's start off looking at number 1, Civ and Leader selection. Would like to see subtle bonuses for Civ and Leader selection. Later on through the expansions of 6.6, you actually have multiple leaders for some Civs. And Civ and Leader selection would be separated. Kind of like how it is, but it's not really. What if Lincoln was the leader of Egypt? Let's say Lincoln's bonus is a +1 amenity for plantations and +2 after emancipation. And Egypt's bonus is +2 gold for cotton plantations. I think that'd be kind of interesting. This allows for many different leaders and civs to be added. Not just one civ, one leader, or a leader per civ or anything like that. We can have multiple different civs in the game. Maybe we don't really fully know everything about their leader history or things like that. Or maybe even some leaders that weren't even leaders of civs throughout human history, and maybe add those people in. So that is where I think it would be interesting to see that. And then throughout the game, you gain attribute points, spend these points in a progressive skill tree web, resets every era or just the era you finished. So the selections you make in that era are locked at the start of a new era, unlocks those points to then spend on a new path. Different tree areas for food, production, gold, science, culture, trade, resources, great person, military, land, naval, air force, or maybe have it connected to governments. Different governments give you different points to spend in different trees. Higher government gives you more points. So for example, have a node early on that allows you to build farms on hills earlier than when it comes in Civ 6 with civil engineering. Like they had been doing for thousands of years in some Chinese cultures. They did this out of necessity. This would give you a snapshot of what your Civ was about at the end of a game. If you had a lot of production and resource-rich tiles but lacked food, then focus on food. Imagine having another bonus for plantations to combine with that Lincoln and Egypt example. Would also like to see military unit specialization removed from Civ selection, or it being tied to Civ selection. Instead, all specialty units are in a pool. After meeting certain conditions, pick a unit specialty. For example, a cavalry to a Cossack or Hussar. This allows for special units to be in the game from civilizations even if those civs aren't in the game, either the game you're playing or just Civ 7 in general, or even multiple special units from one civ, like England has had Man o' War, Redcoat, Longbow, Ship of the Line, and Sea Dog at some point in the Civ franchise. Maybe have a limit, you can only have one special unit per era. Same thing goes for specialty districts and buildings. I just don't like how certain civs are predetermined how you're going to play completely. Want to go for a culture win? Pick a culture civ. British or England are always tied to Navy and Sea in some way. So if it is a land dominated map, then they are already at a disadvantage. Number 2, hunting and gathering eras. This era has never really been part of Civ. Start shouldn't be about settling a city or a permanent establishment immediately. Hunting and gathering should be a part of Civ, but does not need to last long, or maybe it is. I get it, just running down animals or a food source and fresh water could get kind of just boring and tedious. But you could still progress your civilization during this era. There are several advancements that probably happened during the hunting and gathering era. This gives you time to find the ideal site for your civilization to start. Trigger the ability to settle a city maybe. Need to discover cultivation, or maybe no settling cities for the first 15 turns, and you need to keep your units around food resources and fresh water, or they start to lose health. And if you stay around those areas, you fill a growth meter that allows you to increase your population before starting your first city. Take, for example, I know I do have a mod on, but there are plenty of spots around that, potentially wouldn't mind getting to. There's plenty of food sources around. There's plenty of fresh water that, I wouldn't want to just settle on the first spot I start on. So there could definitely be a lot of expansion in this era and part of the game to where it's not just about settling a city early on. You could definitely make it more about exploring and even develop, base culture before settling a city. Not everything has to be tied and produced in a city kind of format. Number 3, seeding and animal reproducing. Surprised that this hasn't been in Civ before. But being able to duplicate crops and animals once access is gained to them just makes sense. You come across rice and farm it. Then you can plant rice on other tiles. Take, for example, these 2 wheat tiles that are just outside of some of my cities around, even this one over here. And it would be great if I could expand it to, over here where I have a lot of farmland, good farmland over here, to help bolster those farms. If another civ has rice and you trade for it, then you can duplicate or plant the rice after you send a trade route to get the resource. Same thing for corn, cows, ox, horses, camels, deer, pigs, chicken. It just makes sense that resources that can be duplicated should be able to be duplicated. And population growth should really require these food resources to be spread. Number 4, builders and charges. Civ 6 was a builder spam game, or at least it felt like that to me when I played. Would like to see basic tile improvements like farms and mines not needing builder charges. Instead, need 3 turns of being worked by a citizen to improve the tile. Most tiles only have one choice: flat lands to farms, hills to mines, resources to their specific upgrade. It was repetitive, making farms, mills, and mines all the damn time. A selector in the city screen to change it to something specific, which would probably be more relevant later in the game with solar, windmill, resorts, etc. Use the builder units to duplicate resources that can be duplicated. Previously mentioned this about spreading animal and plant resources. Want to duplicate cows from city A tile to city B tile? Then use a builder, just like a cattle drive. That way, if you're too far for a trade route or a trading post, You can get leather as a resource in another city. Number 5, resources. It's time for Civ to go big in this area. I'll go into some other details in the next topic as well. But why does deer in Civ 6 provide production when extracted instead of food? And deer is only on tundra. Come on, put deer in grassland, plains, and forest also. No more bonus resources. 3 classifications: economic, strategic, and luxury. Some even overlap or transfer between throughout time, like horses. Raw material resources and process resources especially need to expand. Horses blocking a tile after oil and combustion is just stupid. Game world needs to adapt. Ox, titanium, silicone, etc. And wood should be a resource. More abundance of resources on the map, especially as more tech is researched. More of a particular resource should become available. Like oil has become more accessible over time from different techs for extracting. Also would like to see a scavenger, wanderers, black market, or expeditionary enterprise type of system. Basically, outside your borders, you can pay opportunists to access resources, starting at maybe 4 tiles outside your borders and progresses to eventually cover the globe. Bidding system for civs overlapping on a resource. Click on a resource and outbid the Romans who have it for like 3 gold per turn. Like my example from earlier with Lincoln in Egypt, I'd be willing to pay a pretty good penny to get cotton. Ends if that tile gets claimed by somebody's territory. And that'll wrap up part 1 of this 4-part series. Alrighty, take care.